I love the NBA, man. What a league. Just when you thought things were going to remain relatively quiet on the trade front, you get Kyrie Irving demanding a trade, to then Kyrie getting traded 48 hours later, to then the Lakers making a 3-team trade and landing D'Angelo Russell and finally getting Westbrook off their roster. Josh Hart goes to the Knicks, Jakob Poeltl to the Raptors, to then the biggest Woj bomb of the night, Kevin Durant getting traded to the Phoenix Suns. A wild night leading up to the final hours of the NBA trade deadline. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy the content, feel free to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a video. We are nearing 10,000 subscribers on this new channel, so it would mean a great deal to me to help the channel continue to grow. Now, it's always challenging making videos like this when you're some hours away from the trade deadline still. Very possible, a lot of things can change from the time of this recording and the time that you're watching this, but I really want to highlight 2 trades in this video, and then I'll have a video out after the deadline discussing the winners and losers of the trade deadline. And the 2 trades that I want to talk about are the 3-team trade in which the LA Lakers traded Russell Westbrook, Juan Toscano-Anderson, Damian Jones, and a first-round pick to the Utah Jazz. The first-round pick being a 2027 protected pick, top 4 protected. The Jazz sent Mike Conley, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and 3 second-round picks to the Timberwolves, and the Lakers acquired from both teams D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, and Jared Vanderbilt. And then the other trade, of course, the Brooklyn Nets sending Kevin Durant to the Suns for a pretty sizable haul, which I'll talk about second. But for this 3-team trade, assessing it at a high level right off the bat, you have to say this was a huge come up for the Lakers. I'm not saying it makes them title contenders. I don't even think it gets them higher than a 6 seed to miss the play-in, but after so many months, dating all the way back to last season, of trying to offload Westbrook and knowing that if you wanted to trade Russ, you were likely going to have to ship 2 first-round picks as an incentive for a team to take on his contract, instead, you end up walking away with only having to give up 1 first-round pick, which even has light protections on it. The thought was always that these picks would need to be unprotected, but instead, this pick is top 4 protected, and get this, say it doesn't convey in 2027, the Lakers are a lottery team and it does fall into the top 4, the pick automatically then gets converted to a second-round pick that they would send to the Jazz, and that's it. It's not like the pick would then be unprotected the following draft if it doesn't convey. On top of that, you only give up the 1 draft pick, but you land D'Angelo Russell, who, yes, has his flaws, but is considerably better than Westbrook and younger, is in his prime, only 26 years old, and he's also on an expiring contract. So if it doesn't work out, you still have the cap space and flexibility going into the offseason, and if you do re-sign him, you're re-signing a player who is in their prime as opposed to a past prime star in his mid-30s. They also get Jared Vanderbilt, who I still consider to be one of the more underrated players in the league, a great role player off the bench, big-time hustler, solid defender, fights for rebounds, gives you some scoring in the paint, and he's only 23 and has really started showing signs of great improvement since entering the league as a second-round pick. People forget Vanderbilt was a top 15 recruit coming out of high school. Sometimes players just take a little longer to develop than others, and he's one of those guys. And then Malik Beasley, another player in his prime, solid scorer off the bench, not the most efficient, but what he does give the Lakers is some outside shooting, which they desperately need. Like, I'm honestly shocked the Lakers were able to pull this off after the disaster they've had over the last 2 seasons. Teams really like bailing out the Lakers, I guess. Granted, I say that though, but honestly, all parties involved really made out well in getting what they wanted. The Jazz got their first-round pick. We all know Danny Ainge loves his picks. Mike Conley wasn't going to be a part of the Jazz long-term plans. So they ship him to the Timberwolves, who, for all intents and purposes, is trying to win now with the very regrettable trade they made in moving their entire future for Rudy Gobert. But Conley gives them a proper point guard to maximize Anthony Edwards and Cat's strengths, a savvy veteran point guard that is a great playmaker and doesn't need to score like Russell. So between these 3 teams, I actually think this trade works out for all sides. I do question the Wolves just continuing to gamble on their future for the now, because we all know Conley is starting to decline and that contract isn't as favorable as it used to be, and he'll still have 1 more year left on his deal after the season. If I had to choose a winner of this trade, yeah, I mean, it's got to be the Lakers. You get rid of Westbrook without having to give up a ton of draft capital to do so. You bring in younger, talented role players that actually fit a need on the roster in regards to shooting from Beasley, defense and hustle from Vanderbilt, and another scorer in D'Lo. Now let's talk about the blockbuster trade that happened late in the night, in which the Brooklyn Nets sent Kevin Durant and TJ Warren to the Suns for Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, and 4 first-round picks, all of which are unprotected, 2023, 25, 27, and 29, and a pick swap in 2028. Now, the initial reaction, I think, for most fans is, well, the Suns clearly won this trade. They added one of the best players in the world on an already talented roster. They maintain their core of Booker, CP3, and Ayton. You put Kevin Durant in the mix, the Suns are now clearly the title favorites. And while yes, that's true, I actually think this is a solid pickup for the Nets, especially considering the last week or so of drama surrounding Kyrie Irving demanding a trade. There was speculation on whether they would in fact move Durant. There was talk about how they were going to try to wait until the offseason when his trade value would be a little bit higher rather than try to rush move him before the deadline while he's still injured. And while yes, some are going to look at this and say, well, if the Jazz got 5 first-round picks for Rudy Gobert and all the Nets were able to get was 4 first-round picks for Kevin Durant, a superstar, well, just know the Wolves way overpaid for Gobert, and that will go down as one of the most regrettable trades in NBA history when all is said and done. And getting 4 first-round picks, all of which are unprotected, you guys know how I feel about unprotected picks in today's NBA where so much can change in a matter of 1 or 2 seasons. 4 unprotected picks, and let's not try and act like Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson are just throw-ins at this point. Now, there is speculation on whether the Nets will look to flip Bridges for more assets, and maybe by the time you're watching this, let this happen, but regardless, whether you keep Bridges or move him for more picks, which is what is currently being rumored they're looking to do, that's a big pickup. Bridges is another incredibly underrated player in the NBA and a big piece of the Suns' success over the past few seasons. And the same goes for Cam Johnson. Both of these guys, young players, they continue to get better with every passing season. Like for the Nets, who are effectively going to be rebuilding after hitting the reset button on their super team experiment, to land 5 first-round picks between Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, as well as bringing in solid young players and role players that you can either develop and build around or flip for more draft capital, is actually much better than where they could have found themselves in. Now, that doesn't take away from the fact that the Brooklyn Nets have completely failed as an organization in their attempt to build a dynasty with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden. It is one of the biggest letdowns and disappointments in the history of sports when you factor in that core was only able to win 1 playoff series in their tenure together. And of course, all the drama that ensued throughout that time period. Like, we're not going to sit here and act like the Nets didn't completely fail in that super team that they constructed and all the draft picks that they shipped out to get Harden and then had to trade him for pennies on the dollar to the Sixers. But given the fact that they had very little leverage, given the toxic nature of their environment they found themselves in, to hit the reset button and completely start over by trying to regain all the draft capital they lost in the Harden trade, as well as acquiring some young talent to work with for the future, is actually pretty solid, especially when you knew Kevin Durant wasn't going to want to stay with this team. Now, obviously, the Suns won this trade in the short term because they're a team that just got exponentially better. They become title favorites while adding Kevin Durant, but long term, the fact that Kevin Durant is 34 years old, and when he's healthy, he's a top 5 player in the league, you also can't deny the fact that he has had his injury issues over the past few seasons. Played only 55 games last year, 35 the year before, and missed the whole season the year prior, coming off that Achilles injury. And of course, he's currently out of lineup with no clear timetable to return. Chris Paul also starting to decline at 37 and having his own injury struggles as well. The window to win for the Suns is now. And if you don't achieve that while maximizing CP3 and KD's final years of their careers, you traded away your future to just have a super team that couldn't get over the hump, as we have seen from a lot of super teams more recently. I get why you do it. It's certainly worth the risk. This is Kevin Durant we're talking about here. And if you're able to trade 4 first-round picks and a couple young players for a chance to bring the franchise its first title, yeah, you do that all day, every day. But it's a huge risk considering the age and injury history of your 2-star players. And while you still have a superstar in Devin Booker and one of the better young centers in the league in DeAndre Ayton, you've also given up key role players that have given the Suns so much depth over the past few seasons and were a big reason why the Suns were one of the best teams on the margins to go along with their star talent. So look, I do still think the Suns ultimately won this trade, but it's not as much of a landslide win as people are making it out to be considering the circumstances the Nets found themselves in. There is going to be a lot of pressure on the part of the Phoenix Suns to win now with such a limited window. For lack of a better word, it's championship or bust with this team. And if they don't win a championship, whether it be this season or next season, yeah, you mortgage your future to just be another one of those failed super teams. Let me know what you guys think. Who have been the winners thus far in the trades that have been made? What are the trades that are still left to be made? Let me know in the comments. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.